Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started. Hey everybody, good afternoon to you. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. Yeah. So, we're at video number 8. We are finishing that mini series, the small collection I made of Idaho 4 videos, talking about why I feel that the Idaho 4 murders could have been committed by Moscow, Idaho police officer. This is the combination of all the videos, okay? So I'm going to do my due diligence and I'm going to go over the videos for the last time, which has led me to this point. It's taken us here, right? Who could have committed these horrible, sad crimes? So I'm going to go over the videos that led us here. Prior to starting the series, I had a ton of videos. The videos went over the house, how sound would work. We talked about Brian Kohlberg and how he didn't have any defensive wounds. We talked about the car and him driving around in the car and what that meant. We had videos on his alibi. And what did the alibi mean? That he was driving around. We just had so many videos. We talked about the mindset of someone who could do this, right? The mindset of a serial killer, someone we likened to, for example, Ted Bundy. And what was his mindset? What motivated him? Why was he doing the killings? Things of that matter. We talked about eyewitness testimony. We just had so many videos coming up to this point. And all of those videos, and pretty much when the trial did not have a starting date to set a trial date back in October of 2023, I had more time to really go through the evidence. And when I started to take more time and think things through, I stopped focusing so much on the motions that were being filed, motions about the alibi, motions about changing the venue, things that I felt were not as important because I never focused my attention on Brian Kohlberger as the suspect. I always focused on the evidence. What evidence did they collect? Now, they can have a ton of evidence that we have no idea about, that we don't know about. But what we do know about, we know about what's in this PCA. And they're trying to scrap this PCA. The same information they presented to that grand jury for the indictment of Brian Kohlberger, they're saying, hey, this is trash. We're not using that. We're not using that touch DNA that says, hey, this is how we found the suspect. We don't care about that evidence anymore. In cases, they just don't work like that. They didn't have a preliminary hearing, probably because they'd have to put on that mini case, put on the evidence, bring witnesses forward. And in reality, this is a very weak circumstantial case against Brian Kohlberger. But that's not what's important to me. What's important to me is the evidence that they do have. Who does it show? Who does it demonstrate could have did these heinous crimes, unaliving 4 young people, right? I've always looked at it in just a different lens, not being affected by the media, all the salacious rumors. I mean, it was out of control. I had some words about things that the victims' families were saying, how they were releasing more evidence. You don't do that. You hold that evidence until the trial. What if the real killers are brought to trial one day? We don't want to have any evidence thrown out. We don't want to have a mistrial. We don't want to have this miscarriage of justice that we're seeing with this Brian Kohlberger prosecution. So I'm here today because I want to bring it all together. I want to complete this series and highlight the last part, which is from looking at the evidence, looking at the events leading up to the murders. Who do we think could have done this, right? You know, it's a difficult conversation, but I know people in law enforcement, police officers, security guards, we've had people in law enforcement commit heinous crimes. Heinous. Um, it's just really a sad thing, and it really doesn't matter about the occupation. I'm looking at the mindset. Who could do something like this? What would be the characteristics? Over the mini collection, I talked about the stalking of Kaylee or any of the girls for that matter. What was the mindset of the stalker? What was the intentions? What was some of the reasons why Kaylee thought she had a stalker, right? How she was afraid, how she had her friends kind of watching her back, how she talked to her family, and she believed she had a stalker. It's very, very important, and we should not overlook it because a stalker, they want to hide in plain sight. They want to blend in. They want to be able to go around that person, watch them, surveil them, learn their habits, learn who their friends are, where do they hang out, who do they live with. They're looking for that opportunity, and the obsession for them, it grows, it develops it more. They may want to spend time with them. They want to engage them, maybe meet them one day, not just continue to stalk them, follow them. And if they're rebuffed, if they're rejected, they may be angry. They may want to do that person harm. They may escalate the stalking. That's why I did the video on the stalking, because Kaylee thought she had a stalker. Other people knew of the stalking, and we can't overlook it, right? It's important to look at the overall picture of what was happening in these young people's lives prior to November 12/13, prior to the murder. We can't just go that day and look for. We have to see what was happening in their lives at the time. It's alleged, or it's thought, that the murders, they were committed by someone using a K-bar style knife. I did a whole video about the K-bar knife, the history of the K-bar knife, how it was used in the military, how it was very popular. It was known to be very strong. The blade is not going to break. It's not going to have any slippage where you cut your hand. The person that went into 1122 King Road, they were prepared. They were not fearful. They weren't afraid. They weren't scared. They went to commit this very violent act. They didn't take a GUN. That lets me know that they were sufficient in handling that knife, knowing how to use it, how to strike, how to cause massive damage where the person can't fight back. You can't recover. You can't fight a knife attack. I'm not going to go into great detail because there's a whole video about the K-bar knife in a playlist in Horror Channel, but I do want to say that I believe that person or people, they planned this attack. They went knowing to take the knife. They would use the knife, because if you use a GUN, you're going to hear those shots. They're very loud. unless you have a silencer. But I don't think this person wanted to use a GUN. I think they wanted the up closeness of the knife attack because you can't be, what is this? If I extend my arm out, this is what, about 2 feet? It's very up close, it's personal, it's intimate. Because I can have my mindset um, to the thoughts and the mindset of a serial killer. I'm not trying to use words that are offensive. I apologize if this is coming off offensive, but I'm trying to place my mind, my thoughts, the thoughts of a killer and how they would feel. To them, this would be a very intimate moment, to see the person, to be in their presence, to be close to them, the person you have fantasized, thought about, watched, followed, maybe looked at the social media, been outside the house, followed them to school, followed them to their job, wherever you can blend into their world without being identified, being youthful enough, or having a position, a job where you being older, you would be able to blend in because you're a police officer, for an example. You have a right to be somewhere when you're a police officer, and nobody really questions police officers. Um, you're going to be able to blend into that world. Okay, so we had a whole video about the K-bar knife. Then after the K-bar knife, uh, we talked about this killer being very comfortable at 1122 King Road. Um, I think because they were able to manage what was happening, containing the deaths in each room. So on the third floor, in the room that Kaylee and Maddie were in, and even on the second floor in Xana's bedroom with Ethan, they were able to manage these spaces without someone else coming along. Without someone calling 911. No one tried to run, no one tried to get out, get away. I'm going to show some videos today. There were very loud parties, a lot of noise. I think this was very typical of a weekend, a Friday, a Saturday, leading into Sunday in this area, right? In this area where it's, you want to call fraternity and sorority row, or an area where you had a lot of college kids renting these apartments and homes. Noise was not something that was unexpected on a Saturday, leading into Sunday morning or on the weekend. So the killer, they didn't have any issues with going into this house late, knowing that when you stab someone, you're going to have screams. Um, it's really hard to imagine, but the timing of it all would not maybe elicit a response because people are screaming, music is playing loud, people are out, they're walking, they're drinking, they may be intoxicated, they may be on some type of drug, uh, they may be having a party playing loud music. We've seen the videos, right? And we know that this area was extremely dark. I'm going to show you some videos today to demonstrate everything that I'm saying now. But I believe that the killer or killers, they were very comfortable on King Road. They were comfortable traversing that area, the front leading you into the first floor of the house. If you go around the back, you're coming into the second floor. They were comfortable. They knew the layout. And the reason I'm bringing this up a little bit is because in one of the videos, one of the police officers, he actually says in notes, hey, there's no steps in the back of this house. I don't understand why he even noticed that, but if he's planning this break-in, if he's thinking about the layout and how to get into the house, because in all the 3 visits, none of the people answering the door would let the police in. They actually would say, hey, can you leave the door open? They never invited them in. The roommates and the others never let the police into the house. So that is my feelings, that whoever committed these murders, they were comfortable. They were comfortable on King Road, the area. They could blend in. Um, they didn't have any fear about taking a knife in and unaliving all of these people. Okay, so moving on, there was videos about the 911 call. Also, was the property cleaned up? You know, what was in the 911 call? What people were there? There were friends that were called over and they had been there for hours. Um, when the house was torn down and demolished, you know, there was really no signs that a murder happened. We didn't see any blood. We didn't see any blood splatter from the tear down. We know that the the house after the murders, the property of the residents was removed. They had a disaster truck removing the items, and then we also know that some of the evidence, some of the mattresses and things like that were taken out of the house, and that was the most blood that we saw. But you can place a body on the bed and it's going to bleed out. But I'm talking about the walls, the ceilings, and all of that. You just didn't see, you know, the blood. And I wondered, did the crimes happen at 1122 King Road? Was the crime scene cleaned up? We know that the friends were there the day of the murder for hours. They said that the front door was open at 8 a.m. They didn't call the police until 11:58 a.m. And we know some of the families knew earlier on in the day, 8 a.m., 9 a.m., about the murder. So what was going on all of those hours? Um, I'm going to talk a little bit about uh, one of the other videos, which was the eyewitness testimony, the testimony here in the PCA that we know of. Um, it just didn't seem like young people would say things like ironclad and black. Just doesn't sound like a young person. So I have a whole video on that. You can check that out, but I will go over it a little bit because I'm going to go over some parts of the PCA today, Brett Payne's PCA. But I want to start off because I want to make sure that we have a basis, educational basis of what we're saying, right? Um, I want to talk and highlight something that the FBI has shared about serial killers. So I'm going to share my screen. And I'm just going to pull it up because it's so much to read. I'm not going to read it all, but I do want to share my screen. So I'm on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. Close that out so we can have a little bit more space. Trying to find, let me upload this page, reload it. The FBI, they released some information about serial murders. And excuse me, I want to go over some of it a little bit. I'm not going to read it all. It's a ton of information, but I'm just going to pick up a few highlights. So one moment, because I have to pull it up again. I let my computer log out or time out, so I have to pull it up again. So just give me one moment, please. And I'm going to go off of here. So I'm going to leave that up just so you can see as I read just a few things from this information that they provided. One second. I think I came too far down. Yeah, I was really far down. Okay. So it actually saved the place I was at, which is really funny because it gave me a hard time. Okay, so I'm gonna start. I'm gonna tell you where I'm gonna start, and then I'm not gonna take us there, but you can read it at your leisure when you have time. But I'm gonna start with it's titled Myth Serial Killers Are All Dysfunctional Loners. It says the majority of serial killers are not reclusive social misfits who live alone. They are not monsters and may not appear strange. Many serial killers hide in plain sight within their communities. Serial murderers often have families and homes, are gainfully employed, and appear to be normal members of the community because many serial murderers can blend in so effortlessly, they are oftentimes overlooked by law enforcement and the public. Okay, I'm going to go down where it says myth. All serial murderers travel and operate interstate. Most serial killers have very defined geographic areas of operation. They conduct their killings within comfort zones that are often defined by an anchor point. For example, the place of residence, that's where they live, their employment, so where they work, or residence of a relative, somebody that they're familiar with, their family, that they would know that area, right? So they want to be somewhere where they're comfortable, okay? Serial murderers will at times spiral their activities outside of their comfort zone when their confidence has grown through experience or to avoid detection. Very few serial murderers travel interstate to kill. Okay, I'm going to go down again. I'm going to go down to myth serial killers want to get caught. Offenders committing a crime for the first time are inexperienced. They gain experience and confidence with each new offense, eventually succeeding with few mistakes or problems. So the FBI is noting that when they're inexperienced, when they first start committing a crime, once they commit more crimes, they gain experience, they grow more confident each time. And what usually happens, they make fewer mistakes. So they're having less problems as they continue to commit more crimes because they're learning, they're developing. You should check out some of the videos I did on Ted Bundy, but as you commit more crimes, you do grow more confident. You learn from mistakes and you try to correct those mistakes so the next time you don't have those same issues, okay? While most serial killers plan their offenses more thoroughly than other criminals, the learning curve is still very steep. And I think this is what they're trying to say. They're trying to say that you can plan what you want to do. You can have this idea and fantasize it out and think it out and write it out. But when it happens, when it's time to actually commit the offense, say it's a robbery, for example, you may have all these ideas of, for example, how you're going to rob a person or a house or a bank. But when it's in action, things come up. You can drop something. Someone can intervene into what you think is going to happen. Someone can interrupt that act. Just like I believe in the Idaho Four case, I believe the target was always Kaylee. I believe Kaylee was the target. The reason I believe Kaylee was the target is because she had extremely higher stabbings than any of the other victims. She had defensive wounds. That means that she was woke. She was fighting back. So hard sometimes. She took the most stabbings of all the other victims. She had defensive wounds, and the killer or killers placed her body in that bed, set her up. I believe she was the target. I also think that Xana and Ethan, they interrupted the act. They heard what was going on upstairs. There was a struggle, there was a battle, there was a fight. Kaylee was fighting back. I believe Maddie was in the bed, possibly asleep, and that's why she was wedged in that corner, because the bed was against the wall. She couldn't fight back, but Kaylee did. She was on the outside, closer to the edge of the bed. She fought back. She fought hard. And I think Zane and Ethan heard what commotion that was going on upstairs. And they interrupted it. And that's when the attack on the second floor started. Okay. But I think Kaylee was the target. But let's continue. While most serial killers plan their offenses more thoroughly than other criminals, the learning curve is still very steep. They must select, target, approach, control, and dispose of their victims. We read that again. They must select, target, approach, control, and dispose of their victims. They've selected the victim. I believe it was Kaylee. She was targeted. They approached her. They came into the house. They came upon the third floor. They were able to control the situation in the room to maintain the attack in the room, keep the attack on the third floor. And they left their bodies in the bed. They left Kaylee and Maddie's bodies in the bed. As serial killers continue to offend without being captured, they can become empowered, feeling they will never be identified. As the series continues, the killers may begin to take shortcuts when committing their crimes. This often causes the killer to take more chances, leading to identification by law enforcement. It is not that the serial killers want to get caught, they feel that they can't get caught. Now, we know this was a mass murder. 4 victims, unalived, one night within this house, 1122 King Road, allegedly is the crime scene, because we don't know that for sure. I do not believe anyone that commits a crime, they ever want to get caught. I don't think in this instance they want to get caught, but I also feel that there were a lot of mistakes. There was a lot of misleading the public. And it's really caused a major cover-up in what really happened at this house and who was involved. So I'm gonna be done with this article, but please feel free to review this serial murder information by the FBI. Okay? And that's what it looked like. The serial murder series by the FBI that they released. Okay? Now I want to pull up something else that I'm just going to read. It's on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. It's just some things to note that they feel they've learned over time about serial killers. Um, they feel that they may have some childhood trauma. Um, they feel that these type of killers, they suppress their empathy. They may be a loner, and they're seeking to control others. Um, they want to avoid rejection. Some of them are motivated by attention. Some of them can be deceptive. They're actively searching, of course, for their victims. They fantasize, about the victim, um, killing the victim, harming the victim, and that they lack remorse. Okay. Okay. Now let's move on. I want to get more into what happened November 12th into November 13th. I want to talk about it more, and I'm going to use a press release that the Moscow Police Department um, released back, I think it was November 18th, 2022. So let me pull that up. I want to show you that. Okay. You can always view this on the Hidden Horror Facebook page later because you may not be able to read all of it. It has a level of print, but I'm going to try to enlarge it as much as I can to see you can follow along. I think, yeah, that's the largest I can enlarge it here. I'm going to pull it up here. So this was a press release. It was issued November 18, 2022. It's basically giving an update on what happened at 1122 King Road, the murders. So I'm going to go through it just to go through it because I am going to highlight some other parts that I feel, are notable, but you can read it all later. It says, of course, on the evening of November 12th, we know Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan, they were unalive. They were at the King Row House residence. On the evening of November 12th, Kaylee Gonclaves and Madison Mogan were at the local bar called the Corner Club between 10 p.m. and 1:30 a.m. on November 13th. At approximately 1:40 a.m., Kaylee and Maddie were seen on video at the local food vendor called the Grub Truck, right? And then they received a ride home from a private party from downtown to arrive at their residence at approximately 1:45 a.m. Investigators have determined that Ethan and Xana were seen at the Sigma Chi House on the University of Idaho campus at approximately 1:45 a.m., and they were believed to have returned to the residence on King Road. The two other roommates were at the residence that night. On November 13th at 11:58 a.m., officers responded to the residence after a 911 call reported an unconscious individual. We already had this conversation. We had it yesterday. No way could they call these people unconscious. They were murdered. They were massacred. No way. No way could they call them unconscious. Okay? There's no way. Okay. Upon arrival, officers discovered all the victims deceased inside the home. Autopsies were conducted on November 17th. The Latah County coroner confirmed the identity of the victims, the manner of death, and the cause of death. They, homicide by stabbing, okay? They said that all the victims were asleep, which we know they weren't. Some had defensive wounds. That was Kaylee and Xana. And they all had multiple stab wounds. And they're saying that there was no sign of an S assault, but I just disagree with that, but okay. At the time of the investigation, detectives did not believe the surviving roommates or the grub truck surveillance video or the male in the grub truck surveillance video were involved. Let's go down. Detective sees contents from 3 dumpsters on King Road, looking for evidence. They contacted local businesses to determine if a fixed blade knife had been recently purchased. Detectives received over 500 tips. They processed and investigated. They're basically seeking information. They're getting help from federal and state law enforcement as well. And they were seeking any information, right? Okay. So I just wanted to go over that. Because that's formal. Now, I'm not going to try to hold you long. Yesterday, I talked about the MMO, the means, the motive, and the opportunity. So I'm not going to go over that. You can check out that video yesterday. That was the video discussing how the police hold a lot of information to the vest, how the police misled us, how, which is so many lies, mistakes. This PCA that I'm going to go over, full of lies, full of mistakes and accuracies, just being misled. Why are we being misled? I'm just going to go over the PCA. I'm on page 3, and I'm going to try to read through it quickly. I'm sure everyone's familiar. So they said, I don't like to give their names out. I just call them the surviving roommates. I'm not going to say their names, but they made statements during interviews and indicated the occupants on King Road were home by 2 a.m. and asleep, or at least in their rooms, by 4 a.m. They knew that Xana had received a DoorDash about 4 a.m. It was about 4 or 5 a.m., right? So I'm going to go through it quickly. I'm not going to read word for word. They're saying that the roommate on the second floor was awoken at 4 a.m., but what she said sounded like enclaves. Kaylee playing with her dog in one of the upstairs bedrooms that was located on the 3rd floor. She said she thought she heard someone say, "There's someone here." Then they're saying that a review of the records say that could have been Xana, and I believe it was Xana. I believe Kaylee and Maddie were unalived much, much earlier. When their phones stopped working and they weren't using their phones after 2:52 a.m., I believe the murders for Kaylee and Maddie happened then. And I believe those, or the killers, came down to the 2nd floor after. Because I believe Kaylee was the target. That's my opinion. Anyway, moving on. The roommate on the 2nd floor says she heard someone in the house. She heard a door open on us a second time, and she heard what she thought was Xana crying. She said she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." Moving on. She said she opened the door for the 3rd time and she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. She gives a description: 5'10" or taller, male, not very muscular, but athletic, with bushy eyebrows. Walked past her. Walked past her. What does that mean? Was she there and he physically walked past her, or was she looking out the door and he walked past the door? We don't know. We need clarification. But they said she stood in a frozen shock phase. Why didn't she call the police? If you hear Xana crying, you hear that they're saying someone in the house. You hear the words, "I'm going to help you." Why would you not call the police? They say she locked herself in her room. I'm on page 5 now. Says she didn't recognize the male. Okay. That's all I'm going to discuss for this right now. We're going to move on. We're not going to belabor the point of it all. The statement is important because it places one actor at the time, the alleged time of the murders, approximately 4 o'clock between 4:30 a.m. in the house. If she saw this person in the house at approximately between 4 a.m. and 4:30 a.m., and we can do a little bit better. We know that Xana was on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. So the murders technically would happen after 4:12 a.m. because they know that Xana was on TikTok, right? So we're looking for some time after that, after the DoorDash delivery, right? After 4:05 a.m., after 4:12 a.m., where Xana's on TikTok. And we know that the murders for Kaylee and Maddie had to happen prior to this time. That means that the killers were already in the house and they were already on the third floor because remember, she can hear Xana crying. And after this, the alleged killer walks past, leaves. It's about 4:30 a.m. So we know the murders for Maddie and Kaylee had to happen prior to because they didn't go upstairs after all this. They were already from the third floor down to the second floor. So that means that the killers had a lot of time on that third floor. What were they doing? What were they doing? We know the last activity on Kaylee and Maddie's phone was at 2:52 a.m. We know that Xana was on TikTok at 4:12 a.m. That's over an hour. What are you doing? If you're a stalker, if you stalked Kaylee all this time, are you spending time with her? Are you posing her body? You've already did the act of the murder. What are you doing? This is why I've always pushed and questioned whether was there an S assault for the girls, particularly Kaylee and or Maddie. Not so much Xana because when the killers came down to the second floor, they're really being confronted by Xana because Xana's up. Xana's had her DoorDash. She's on that phone on TikTok, but she can hear that commotion. She hears and knows that someone else is in the house. This is what Xana says. But they've had so much time up there on that third floor. Have they cleaned up? Did they do the S assault? Did they take pictures? Did they take video? I'd like to know if there's a way to see who's connected to Wi-Fi in the area. What phone numbers were falling on the Wi-Fi network? Did they bring a phone? We don't know. We don't know, but I'd like to know, right? The reason that I feel this was a stalker motivated crime, a sexual motivated crime is because I believe they had a lot of time up there on that third floor with Kaylee. What did the room look like? I would like to know, was Kaylee redressed? Was her clothes removed and placed back on her? Did they have clothes on? When I say they, I'm referring to Kaylee and Maddie. This was something of a fantasy, the obsession, the stalking, the watching, the following. And now this person is before you. And maybe she rejected him. And maybe that's why the attack was so vicious against Kaylee. Maybe she rebuffed him. Maybe she want to know what the hell are you doing in my house? Why are you in my room? Who are you? And that's when it went bad. And maybe it wasn't a quick attack. Sometimes these actors, they bring zip ties. They may have tried to cover up her mouth. We don't know. We don't know. But it's things that we have to consider when we have this large gap in time between the time that the phone started working and the time that the attack on Ethan and Xana started. We have an hour. have about an hour or so. So it's something to really, really think about. And, there's a bathroom on the third floor. Did they clean up? Did they, rinse the blood off? Did they take the pipes out the sink on the third floor to see if there was blood in there? Did they check? Did they look in the bathtub? Was there footprints leading to the bathroom? Um, we don't know. We don't know. I guess it's all going to come out. Um, Now, what we don't get in this PCA statement of the roommate on the second floor, we don't hear that the person was covered in blood. Did the person redress or people redress on the third floor? But they still had an attack with Xana and Ethan. There's no statement saying there was blood on the clothing. If you're stabbing someone, you're going to have splatter, you're going to have drips, cast off from when you take the knife and bring it down and bring it up. They were all stabbed multiple times. And from Brett Payne's PCA statement, he said he saw, let me read it. Let me read it. As I approached, let me go back. Officer Smith and I entered, I'm on page 1. Paragraph 3. Officer Smith and I entered the King Road residence through the bottom floor door on the north side of the building. Officer Smith and I then walked upstairs to the second floor. Officer Smith directed me down the hallway to the west bedroom on the second floor, which I later learned through Xana's driver's license and other personal belongings found in the room was Xana Kernardo's, hereafter Kernardo's room. Just before this room, there was a bathroom door on the south wall of the hallway. As I approached the room, I could see a body, later identified as Kernardo's, laying on the floor. Kernado was deceased with wounds which appeared to have been caused by an edged weapon. Also in the room was a male, later identified as Ethan Chapman. Chapman was also deceased with wounds, later determined to be caused by sharp force injuries. Who could have done this, right? If Brett Payne's PCA is truthful, who could have done this? Why don't they want to refer and use the PCA? Is it true? Are these true statements? Are these accurate statements? I honestly feel like some of the statements are true and some of them are not. I think that statement is true. I don't think the statement about the ironclad in black, I don't know. I don't know. Because why don't they want to use the PCA anymore? That they use to get probable cause to take this case to a grand jury to indict Brian Koberger. Right? It's okay. I'm here to help you. It's okay. I'm here to help you. Let's talk about a couple of things. After the murders and the case blew up, all around, people were investigating, looking into this case. There was a release of multiple videos that showed officers going to the King Roadhouse for noise complaints. I have shared these videos on the Hidden Horror Facebook page, but today I'm only going to go over one of the videos. And the reason I'm going to show you this video is because this one act, it triggered me into feeling that the police officers unalived the Idaho Four. And I'm going to show it to you. I'm not going to show you all three videos, but I did link them. They're on the Hidden Horror page. They're from Law and Crime Network. You can watch them on YouTube yourself, but I'm only going to show you the one video. And I'm only going to show you the part that's important that I want to go over. You can watch them at your leisure. They're linked on the Hidden Horror Facebook page, okay? But it's three videos. It's a video of Xana. It's a video of the police going to the home and them having to, one of the people that came to the door, they called Maddie and they talked to Maddie. And then the video that I'm going to show you is the video of Kaylee. And I'm going to show you what happens.
Looking for an easy way to view and manage your mail and packages from anywhere, 24/7?
So they went and visited the house not too far from there. When the police get to the King Row house, they go to the front and then they decide to go around to the back. They were trying to get someone to come about the noise complaint.
Hey guys, can you send someone out who lives here, please?
Did you guys get any ballots to send you last night? Because I'm looking for one with Xana Dash.
Nope. Sorry, you can always call us later and ask in case it gets turned in here. It's our business line.
Sweet, thank you.
You bet.
So they're going to go around to the back of the house. This video is from August 16, 2022, and it's available by the Law and Crime Trial Network.
No one's coming to the door.
And the time on the video is 5:27 p.m.
Yeah, I took one look at that speaker. I said,
Y'all those properties back there, I would like to know, do any of these properties have cameras that pick up the back of 1122 King Road? I hope there was a good canvas to see if there was any video surveillance behind the property.
You got a lot of guys trying to argue private property access.
the way I've always done it, and correct me if I'm wrong, was the
And I'm going to show you the angle from both officers. This angle is from the officer that's standing further back, and he's picking up the officer in the front. It's two officers in each video. Then I'm going to show you the officer in the front that's closer to the back door.
way I did it there. Find one
Sliding
responsible,
door.
have everyone else hold them accountable. If I got to come back here, they're getting the ticket. Because then it's on them to nip everyone else in the bud.
Yeah, and if they don't come out, we just contact landlords.
Yeah.
Or we come back the next day or the next time you work.
Yeah.
And just note that, lack of cooperation does not go a long ways with us.
Yeah.
No stairs to the back deck. Interesting.
Did you guys just hear that? There are no stairs to the back deck. Just rewind that just a few seconds.
Huh. Downstairs to the back deck. Interesting.
Remember, when you're planning something, you're planning how can you get into the house? How can you get out of the house? What are the entry points? There is a ladder on the side of the house. You can use that to climb up if you wanted to get away, if you made it to the 3rd floor. But he said it. He said there is no steps.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, is this your place?
Yeah.
That's Kaylee.
You are here.
I assume noise.
Noise, yeah.
Yeah.
Big speaker right there.
Yeah.
Nothing against having a party. Once neighbors start calling in, they have an issue.
Fair.
You go to school?
Yeah.
Okay. What year?
Senior.
Senior. Okay. So I'll tell you the same thing I told them. You probably know the drill, right?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay. So usually, at least for me, I'll give you a verbal warning.
Okay.
Once I have neighbors calling in, your music's too loud, you're disturbing the peace.
Yeah.
Nothing against having parties, nothing against having people over who are overage to drink.
Mhm.
But again, once we start disturbing the neighbors, then we've got an issue.
Yeah.
Always ticket is up to 300.
Yeah, somewhere around 300, 400
It's a
bucks.
pretty expensive ticket. I don't want to give that to you. That being said, this is your place, so I'm going to hold you responsible.
They get it more
Because it is your
expensive
place,
later
you're
it
also
gets.
responsible for everybody.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna grab
We already
it.
warned them
Yeah.
too, so
And if I do have to come back here, $300 some dollar tickets can be away.
Okay.
And only gets more expensive. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely.
Actually, what's your phone number for you? Is this 1122 here?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd much rather you spend that $300 on beer or something fun than
Yeah,
a noise
yeah.
ticket, right?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. That being said,
Right there. Right there. Why did he pull out that cell phone? And why is he taking a picture of her ID? He already, you saw it, he already wrote down her information. He has her name, he has her address, he has her driver's license. Why are you taking a picture of her ID? You have her phone number right there.
warnings. Don't do it again.
Yep.
I hate
There
to
you
come
go.
back and-
You see it right there. Right there. Took a picture of her ID. He didn't do that in any of the other videos. He never took a picture of anybody else's ID.
a few hours and then have to issue that. So,
Yeah.
any questions for me?
No.
All right. Have a very good day.
take care.
I'm going to show you from his angle. Just going to speed it up.
Because I live in Detroit, I was able to get tuition-free college through the Detroit Promise. I feel very fortunate.
What year?
Senior.
Senior. Okay. So I'll tell you the same thing I told them. You probably know the drill, right?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay. So usually, at least for me, I'll give you a verbal warning.
Okay.
Once I have neighbors calling in, your music's too loud, you're disturbing the peace.
Yeah.
Nothing against having parties, nothing against having people over who are overage to drink.
Mhm.
But again, once we start disturbing the neighbors, then we've got an issue.
Yeah.
Noise ticket is up to 300.
Yeah,
and
somewhere around 300, 400.
okay, it's a pretty expensive ticket. I don't want to give that to you.
Yeah.
That being said, this is your place, so I'm going to hold you responsible.
Uh-huh.
Because it is your place, you're also responsible for everybody here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to grab your info.
Yeah.
And if I do have to come back here, a $300 some dollar ticket's coming your way,
Okay.
and it only gets
Give
more
them the
expensive
ID.
from there. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fair. Absolutely.
Actually, let's just do it this. What's a good phone number for you? Is this 1122
Here's
here?
the phone number.
Okay.
He has the address. What else does he need?
I'd much rather you
Pulls
spend
out
that
his
$300
phone.
on
You
beer or
just saw it
something
in the
fun.
sunlight.
Yeah,
noise
in the
ticker, right?
shade.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. That being said, warnings. Don't do it again.
Yep.
I'd hate to come back in a few hours.
I want to make you aware of something. There has been a lot of issues with law enforcement in the state of Idaho. And I want to make you aware of something if you didn't know. There's going to be a link on the Hidden Horror page. It's going to be 2 articles, but I'm only going to read one. This article is by www.kxly.com. It's titled Prosecutors Disclose Internal Affairs Investigation Involving Officer in Moscow Murder Case. This was March 29th, 2023. Prosecutors building a case. Melissa Luck was the writer. Prosecutors building a case against the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students have disclosed to the court an internal affairs investigation involving one of the officers. Prosecutors filed a notice of Brady disclosure this week, which says the state has become aware of potential Brady Giglio material related to one of the officers involved in the Kohlberger case. The material, prosecutors write, is in the form of an internal affairs investigation. So that means that one of the officers that's involved in the Brian Kohlberger case, he's been under review with an internal affairs investigation, and they have to contact and inform the court. Because of a gag order imposed by the court, no one involved in the case can answer any clarifying questions. The prosecutor does say the state intends to disclose the specifics to the defense team, but says that the Idaho records laws prevent that information from being disclosed publicly. So they're saying, we're going to give this information to the defense team, but we can't have it disclosed publicly. After reviewing the information, the judge in the case issued a protective order preventing the documents and the information from being disclosed. Brady Giglio material refers to a constitutional obligation to ensure a fair trial and to disclose material that could impact a finding of guilt. According to the Department of Justice, recognizing that it is sometimes difficult to assess the materiality of evidence before trial, prosecutors generally must take a broad view of materiality and err on the side of disclosing exculpatory and impeaching evidence. We know exculpatory evidence is evidence that can tend to prove the defendant's innocence, and then impeaching evidence. That means you can impeach the testimony or the evidence. Brian Kohlberger faces 4 counts of first-degree murder for the deaths of Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Xana. He could face the death penalty if convicted. Kohlberger is being held in the Latah County Jail in Moscow pending a preliminary hearing in June. Remember, this is from 2023. At the hearing, prosecutors will present evidence and a judge will determine if there is enough to proceed to trial. The gag order in the case prevents anyone involved from disclosing any information outside of what is filed in public court records. Most of what has been filed so far has been uploaded to this public website. The information contained in most of the documents, however, has been sealed. The information has been sealed. So, who does this involve? What officer? What officer that was investigating the Brian Kohlberger case, Idaho 4 case, where there could be some exculpatory information, impeachable information, evidence? What happened with this? What happened? On the Hidden Horror Facebook page, I put some information from the Office of Justice Programs talking about the standards. I'll pull that up and show you. So I'm going to wrap this up. This is from the Office of Justice Programs. Let me see if I can make it larger. Now, Now read this. Standards for the organization and conduct of police internal affairs units investigating allegations of misconduct by officers. Pretty much, I'll read it. Because the effectiveness of any police agency is dependent upon its reputation for integrity within the community, internal affairs units for investigating serious violations of the law by police officers should be established by all police departments. An internal affairs unit should act with integrity, be responsible to complaints from both inside and outside the agency, and keep an accurate record of its activities. So you can read the rest if you like, but they're investigating violations of the law. So what happened? What happened and what officer was it? We don't know. We don't know what came of this. We just know that it was all sealed from the public. You know, as I think about the case, we still don't have a trial date set. The defense is still requesting evidence. We've gone over a lot of mistakes that initially were by law enforcement. This case, this investigation is handed over to the prosecutor, and they're going with the evidence, the information, what was discovered, the autopsy report, all of that, the medical examiner report. They're reviewing that and they're making these decisions. If they're seeing all of the mistakes, if they're seeing that this evidence is being withheld, in a recent testimony with Brett Payne, when he was questioned by defense attorney Ann Taylor, he didn't know where the records were. He didn't know where the videos were. There was no log. There was no order. For this case to be 1.5 years in plus, it's a mess. It's a mess. And we can't overlook some basic policing standards. Why did that police officer take that picture of Kaylee? They were constantly there on noise complaints. I'm not going to show you the videos with the property being extremely dark, but someone could go in under the guise of the late evening, the darkness, break into this property. I linked a video on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. It was an article, not a video, that talks about Xana Cornoto's dad putting locks. They show the locks, the type of locks that were on the doors. It's on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. You know, those were numbered locks. You'd have to have a code to get in. And all of the doors to the rooms were supposed to have those locks. Did they break into those rooms? Did they bust into those locks? Or did they have the code? Somebody that did this, they were familiar. They were familiar with the house. They were comfortable being in the house. They were familiar and comfortable with the layout of the house. And they didn't have any fear. They were confident going in with a knife. This is not a young person. This is not the average 17 to 22-year-old. This is somebody older. This is somebody experienced. This is someone that was confident. And I believe they were motivated by obsession, stalking, love interest, romance. The level of stabbings for Kaylee, it made me feel that she was the target. The fact that she said she was being stalked, I just feel that obsession, it is motivation. It is a motive. And I'll get back to this and I'll wrap it up with this. If the stalking was the motive, the means, the capability of committing this crime, of unaliving 4 people, I believe a police officer could do it. I do. I believe that their training, with their experience, shooting a gun, having a knife, carrying a knife possibly as a weapon, normally, typically, I believe that they would be physically capable, would have a weapon such as a knife to do this. And I believe they had the opportunity. They had been at the house, 1122 King Road, multiple times for noise complaints. They saw the layout. They noticed that the back did not have any steps. He took a picture of Kaylee's ID. And I'm not saying it was more than one person. I have no idea. But what I am saying, when I look at who's likely, who had the motive, who had the opportunity, who had the means, I believe that a police officer would easily blend into this community, be able to walk around, knock on any door at any 1 in the morning, 5 in the morning, with nobody even thinking about it. While other officers are at the band field, walking around. Other officers could be sitting in the car, doing traffic stops, sobriety tests, and they blend right on in there. So for me, I'm gonna continue to look into this case, not just for a police officer as a suspect. I don't care who the suspect is. I want to know who unalived these 4 students. That's my cause. And I'm not going to stop. I'm interested. I want to know. I want to know what the evidence is. I want to watch this trial with extreme intent on the evidence, because from what I've seen, the PCA is really inaccurate. They don't even want to use their own PCA. And then all of the evidence relating to it is falling apart. And when I look to see who did the investigation, now I know that there's some type of internal affairs investigation going on with one of the officers. And I know in Idaho, a lot of law enforcement officers were decertified, were involved in all kind of crimes. And I'm looking and I'm paying attention. Okay, so thank you for spending this time with me. I want you to have a beautiful Sunday, and remember, stay smart, stay safe, stay savvy, be well. All my friends, have a beautiful day. Bye, everybody.